Basically knowing your client and what they're looking for and not trying to sell them something.
What's been your number one secret to selling luxury real estate in the Bay Area?
Basically knowing your client and what they're looking for and not trying to sell them something, but finding out exactly what they want and need. And maybe it's not always what you need, but what you can have. And there's a huge difference there.
So talk about that nuance there, and what's the one or two questions that help you to pull that out so that the client can understand that?
Well, I was actually just sold a client an $8.8 million house last week. And he looked at me and said right before he bought the house, my wife and I, there's only two of us. Our kids are all gone. We don't need this. And I looked him straight in the eye and I said, you know what? Need is not the answer here. You've worked hard and you can have it.
That's beautiful. So knowing the nuance and helping people, it's almost like a psychologist sometimes, right? And giving them the permission to be rewarded for what they've worked hard for. Is that a fair summary so far?
That's exactly what I was trying to tell him.
So when you first meet with the client for the first time, what are the top questions you found to ask to really get to know them and understand what their needs and wants are?
I always start out by, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me, and this is a key one which you started with, where were you raised? Because then you know exactly what they're going to look for. Mm-hmm. And people buy luxury homes off of where they were raised, which is really wild. I know that sounds crazy, but I just sold a $6 million home that was absolutely beautiful to this young couple with a baby. And the woman walked in and she said, oh my God, this looks just like where I was raised. The house looks the same. It has the beautiful yard in front. I knew she was going to buy that house. Her husband didn't know he was going to buy that house, but I knew they were.
That's fantastic. So connecting, the dots, or connecting the past to the future or the present, and helping them to see that. That's where they were raised. That's fascinating. So like if you're raised like maybe on a more of a farm or a rural area versus the city versus different parts of the U.S., like what are some of those nuances that you're always trying to pull out?
That's exactly, I'm trying to figure out what they enjoyed about their lifestyle as a child. Mm. And usually they're going to go back to that, whether it is a ranch or whether it's an apartment building in New York City. Mm. They're going to end up going back to that same type of lifestyle if they can afford it.
So maybe that's the question. What did you most enjoy about where you grew up and the environment that you grew up in? And maybe connecting that nuance to this house that you're selling. Is that a fair thought or summary on that?
It's extremely, yeah. You picked up on it right off the bat.
Okay, excellent. So that's kind of the first secret. Okay. So now talk about the execution of this. So now you got to go to bat for your clients, and you've got to be able to negotiate, and either on the buy side or even the sell side. So what are some of the top ways that you've learned to negotiate for your clients?
Well, I'm really a listing agent more so than a buying agent, and I don't know how that happened, but it just did. And so I'm always trying to negotiate and figure out when someone walks in the house to look at my listing, what they're looking for, and trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to satisfy their needs, what they want with my listing.
Absolutely. Now talk about that. So when there's 10 amazing things about the listing, are you picking those one or two that are going to be most applicable to that buyer, or are you giving them all 10?
I'm trying to give them all 10 and then focus in on what's important to them. Mm-hmm. But I really want to show them all of them because you never know what they're going to pick up on. You can usually figure that out pretty quick.
How do you know when you've picked up on the one that really connects? I mean, you mentioned that one with the gal who said, she literally laid it out for her. This is like my house I grew up in. I mean, you're looking for that emotional connection. Or what is it that you're looking for to figure that out?
The person will usually start asking a lot of questions on something they're interested in. If they don't ask a question, that's probably not hitting their button.
I see.
But once they start asking a question, then okay, they're interested.
Sure.
The more questions you get, the hotter the topic.
What's the one thing that you've learned along the years to make sure that you don't either make that mistake, or you prepare your client to manage and help to set expectations? Because you're selling, $5, $10, $15 million houses. These are big deals, big opportunities, and high stakes environments. So what are the things that you're helping to prepare and help manage those expectations?
This might sound crazy, but I always try to bring the negative up and make sure that the person on the other side understands all of the negatives about the home and then talk about the positives. Because if you tell them something negative, they're usually okay with it before you sell the house, but they're really upset after you sell the house. So I want to get that all out on the table, make sure they completely know everything about it. And then it usually turns into a pretty positive solution.
I think there's so much wisdom there, right? Where if you can also help you to qualify the buyer, right? And that, this is not for you if it's 1, 2, and 3. Like these are the worst things. And if they could say, okay, well, I'm okay with that. Those aren't really that negative to me. Okay, then let's go move forward, because I imagine you have a lot of people that are trying to either talk to you or make offers or go through, and you've got to really focus on, growing the business and looking at the highest and best opportunity for your client.